Davini. He did my shoulder also. Yeah. Y'all, I'm going to go and get started because we're about 10 minutes past, and I'm unfortunately I'm going to have to leave pretty quick right after we get through, and I want to be able to answer as many questions as you guys may have. If y'all are new here, have never been to see one of my seminars. I'm Kelly Hitchcock, and I have Cage Fitness up there. That was my wife and I. That was our business here in town. We sold our business, our building, probably about 5 years ago, and now we're associated with Life Changing Fitness, which is it's part of PT Solutions, which is a physical therapy place. We're located in the back of that, and also Dr. David Ball is a concierge doctor. He's up front. If you're looking at the building to the left, and I really am so happy that we were able to join up with them because I like to be more on the medical side rather than the commercial, you know, just gym type affiliation, because it just, I don't know, I want to be a little bit, to me it's more professional, and we make sure that all of our trainers are completely certified and we're all on the same page. And you might say, well, what page is that? Well, it's the medical page. I mean, if it's not in the exercise physiology book or any of the nutritional texts, then we don't really promote it. We promote what works. And it's amazing to me how different that is. I could tell by the last time I spoke with some of you guys about nutrition, about how few people really know what to do. And it's because we're so conditioned by what we see on TV or what we read, just some of the popular fads of the day. And so hopefully I can help clarify some of those misconceptions. If anybody doesn't have any of the paper that we have here, we have two different ones. There's a meal plan for women, but I kind of explain about doubling it for men. And then there's also some of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So anyway, yeah, this is actually, it's going to be a nutritional talk today. But if y'all have any questions about exercise, then, please let me know. And my little pointer's not working here. Is there something I'm not doing correctly? Do I need a thing for this?
No. Did you put it in your computer?
Yeah, I couldn't. No, that's mine. That's what I'm saying. I think there's a.
It's missing then.
Yeah.
The other lady took it. You might have to move.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, you'll have to go down.
Okay, it's good. And like I said, I'm going to go through this quick because I'm more interested in the questions you guys may have. Let me run a few things by you that I think is very important before we even talk about food. William Glasser was one of the inventors of cognitive behavioral therapy. And in the 1970s, he said, we don't do what we know, we do what we believe. Okay, because we may know what to do, but if we don't believe it, then we don't do it. I know you got to kind of think about that a little bit, but we don't do what we know, we do what we believe. And if you believe something that's flawed, then the outcome is going to be flawed. And also, you guys got to know the definition of insanity. Somebody continues to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. If you're a realtor and you tried this thing that you thought would work, if it didn't work, it's probably good not to do it again. Put that down as a lesson. It's a valuable lesson. We don't lose, we learn. Okay. Maya Angelou said, you did what you knew how to do, but when you knew better, you did better. It's very, very important. Okay. And this is really big here too, and I'm going to explain why. A program without a concern for muscle is a program designed to fail from the beginning. Okay, if the program you're doing isn't doing something to spare muscle loss, so we either need to maintain the muscle we have or it's focused on increasing lean body mass, then that program will fail you every time. It's not so much that you're a failure, it's the programs that are failing us. Take a look at some things right here. In 1980, 30% of adult obesity or being overweight was 30%. 2002, it's 66, and I believe the latest recording is around 70, 75%. If the current trend continues by 2030, 95% of Americans will be overweight or obese. School-age children, 35% of school-age children are overweight. There's different causes for this, lack of physical activity being one of them, sedentary behaviors, also our eating habits, environment, socioeconomic standards. The year 2000, obesity surpassed tobacco as the leading cause of preventable deaths in the U.S. I think you could see a lot too with the COVID epidemic that we've just gone through, that the people who suffered the most were the people who had a lot of comorbidities, being overweight, hypertensive, diabetic. Diabetes is probably the number one issue that we have going on. I mean, we have cardiovascular disease as the number one problem, but diabetes is what is a big, big factor. You look at it's the epidemic of the new millennium. There are an estimated 17 to 20 million now. My PowerPoint is a little bit outdated. I think that estimation is up around 20 million. But of this 20 million, you've heard of adult onset diabetes. Well, they're not calling it that anymore. They're just calling it type 2, because type 1 is a disease. It's where the pancreas is not producing enough insulin for us to absorb our food properly. Type 2 is is a self-induced issue. Okay, they used to call it adult onset, but now children are becoming type 2 diabetics, and that's just simply because we're eating so much more food than our body can metabolize. We can't release enough insulin to drive it into storage where it needs to be stored. So that's a huge, huge problem. The largest increase is in 4 and 5-year-olds. So the magic question is, how did we get here? It's kind of complex. Sedentary lifestyle, the socioeconomics, the convenience, availability of high calorie, high fattening food. We have the obsession with thinness and fad diets. And believe it or not, I put this down. I had made this PowerPoint prior to social media. And I'll tell you how old this is. And with social media, that's caused a lot of problems. I'm going to run through this really fast. Let's take a look at this. The healthy fast foods we think we're eating, and I just want to make us more aware of this. Caesar salad, 18 grams of fat at McDonald's. By adding ranch dressing, you're getting that 53 grams of fat per day. A McGrilled chicken sandwich we may think is healthy, 17 grams of fat. I take in around 30 grams of fat, eating about 2,800 calories a day. I'm going to say an average sized lady, around 20 to 25 grams of fat total per day. And we're getting some of this in one meal. The Wendy's Taco Supreme salad, 32 grams of fat. Actually, a hamburger would be less than that. So we have good intentions, but there's some secret things that are sliding in. Burger King Caesar salad is 23 grams of fat. Okay, so let's get into a little bit to what I'm recommending. Okay, so a lot of diets out there today are low carb. A lot of it's based in low carb. Okay, our brain is our body's number one priority. And nutrition first has to please the brain before it gets stored and shuttled elsewhere. In this room, all of our brains require 120 grams to 150 grams of carbohydrate per day. Okay, just for brain functioning. If you do not get enough to feed the brain, then you could die and go into a coma. You could go into a coma and die. Why are people not dying, dropping dead left and right? Fortunately, we have the ability to create glucose, carbohydrate, without eating it. So let's just say you're going along and you're eating about 100 grams of carbohydrates a day, and you're probably taking in, say, around 200 grams of protein. That's kind of an average of what these programs are. So you're making it, you're losing weight, you love how you look, but you're sluggish. You're trying to smile, but it's really tough. It's hard. You don't feel really good. But if you can keep that program going for about 2 to 3 more weeks, what happens is you get into this new state where you feel better. You're functioning better. Your body is learning how to work on that ratio of food. Okay. The reason why you're working better is your body is getting better at breaking muscle down into glucose. Okay, and as I said earlier, a program without a concern for muscle is a program designed to fail from the beginning. So our body starts breaking down muscle mass to convert it into glucose to feed our brain. Okay, our bodies we've got to find a way, the brain's going to find a way for us to live with poor nutrition intake. So if you lose, let's just say you lose 20 pounds on this diet. I'm going to give you the reason why this works is because, or where that weight loss is coming from. 10 pounds of that weight loss is water, okay? Because when you lower your carbs, you can't hold fluid. Okay. Muscle is 70% water, so you're slowly dehydrating those muscles. Okay, so 10 pounds comes from water. 5 pounds is going to come from muscle. Okay, losing 5 pounds of muscle, you're thinking no big deal. Well, you just lowered your metabolic rate by 250 calories a day. You burn 250 calories less per day. And we've lost 5 pounds of fat. So 10 pounds of water, 5 pounds of muscle, 5 pounds of fat. Okay, now if we get that number bigger, and let's say we lose 40 pounds, then now you've lost 10 pounds of muscle. Now you burn 500 calories less. But you're really skinny. You're getting thin, and then we get compliments by people. Oh my gosh, what are you doing? You know, because you can see the face is kind of sunken in. You got that jawline being exposed. But while all of this is happening, it's killing us. We're getting exhausted. We don't have enough energy to keep up to do anything. We're cognitively challenged. We can't think clearly like we used to. Our memory is not as good. And then we start getting worried because is there something going on here? You know, and it's all it is that we're starving our brain, and our brain is sacrificing other areas of our body, which is muscle, to compensate for that. So that is why low carb is not good. Okay, fasting, I know that's very popular also. The way the brain works, the most the most efficient or effective way that our brain can work is to give it carbohydrates, protein, every 3.5 hours. We want to eat just enough to feed the brain, to replenish the muscle glycogen stores, and enough protein to do its job, which is to control our immune system, to give us a better immunity against whatever's floating around out there, and then also to help to rebuild the tissue. Now, I know a lot of people, if you work out, we read that you got to have protein. You got to have protein because it prevents you from losing muscle. Okay, that is true, but it's even more true that you need more carbohydrates, because if the carbohydrates give the muscles fuel, then protein is left alone to repair the tissue that's been worked. Okay. But if there's no carbohydrates present, the number one priority is to break down this protein, convert it into glucose so that we can stay functioning throughout the day. And unfortunately, we lose muscle because there's not enough protein left to do its job in repairing tissue. Okay, and so what we recommend for an average lean, healthy tone body is we recommend 55 carbohydrates, 25% protein, and 20% fat. Now, that is going to be based off a certain number. Like, so I have 2,800 calories, 55% carb, 25 protein, 20 fat. If you're a female that weighs about 130 pounds, you're probably going to be consuming anywhere between 1,800 to 2,000 calories. And what we'll do is we'll do that formula. We'll figure that in to know how much of that 1,800 calories is coming from carb, protein, and fat. If anybody has any questions, please, you're not going to interrupt me because this is just kind of going through all this because it's very complicated. So anyway, that is the ratio that we recommend. Okay, to make this easy, this is a 2-to-1 carb to protein. Okay, so let's say you're eating, for ladies, 20 grams of protein in a meal. That means you need around 45 carbs. It's almost 2-to-1. You double the carb to the protein. That makes sense. Okay. We always want to try to minimize the amount of fat coming in. We got on this big fat craze, with doing coconut oil and all the healthy fats. Okay. That is true. It's healthy fat, but the body's still going to store it. Okay. One is the good fats are not going to clog the arteries, but that's good. But it's still going to be stored on your rear end or on your belly. Okay, it's yes, it's a good fat, but we still need to minimize that. I wouldn't be adding fat to your food. The fat that we eat in our protein, that's the fat we have coming in, and we also need to eat leaner cuts of protein, your fish and chicken, and kind of go into some of those things a little more. If you'll notice, it's a 2-to-1 ratio. As I just said, 50 carbs to 25 protein. That's just an example. Mixed meals. Every meal we eat needs to have a protein, a carb, and a fat. Every meal. Okay. And you don't want to skip breakfast. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It's breaking the fast. That's where we get that name. And I know a lot of people go, I just hate eating. Well, what we find happening is that we skip breakfast and we're really starving at lunch, and then we're really still kind of hungry at dinner. And then 8, 9, 10 o'clock comes, you're hungry, you're starving. And so we binge. And then you wake up the next morning and go, I binged last night, so I'm going to skip breakfast. And it's a vicious cycle, you see. So if we can try to find a little something, if you'll make yourself eat breakfast, 3.5 hours eat again, 3.5 hours eat again, keep it going throughout the day, then we can reward ourselves with a little evening snack. And I'll kind of go into some of those choices. So every 3 to 3.5 hours, we need to keep something coming in. Brain requires 120 grams of glucose. Okay, this is a good example. I call this the Goldilocks zone of eating. Okay, we don't want to go below this line because that's low blood sugar. We don't want to go above that line because that's high blood sugar. So we want to stay right in this area. We don't want it too high or too low. We want it to be just right. Okay. So when I eat breakfast, and like I've said before, let's say I had 1 egg with 6 whites and 2 slices of whole wheat bread with some preserves, Smucker's preserves. My blood sugar will go up. My brain releases insulin and it brings it back down. Then it's 3.5 hours. I have a smaller meal, so it doesn't elicit as much of a blood sugar spike. But then it comes down. At lunch, I have a bigger meal, and you can see it goes through that like that throughout the day. Let's say you had what did you have? A cheese Danish, okay? Let's throw in a Coke with that. So what would happen is your blood sugar would go sky high. Okay, the brain is a thermostat. It's regulating the temperature. Is it too cold or too hot? Okay, so in this case, it goes up. It gets too hot. The brain releases insulin and it drives the blood sugar down. Now, eating a meal like what we just mentioned, let's say a honey bun and a Coke, goes up really high. The brain releases insulin. It goes really low. Now we're low blood sugar within 30 minutes. So now we start burning 50% muscle and 50% fat. We release a hormone called cortisol that gets it back up. But then it starts falling quickly. So we're erratic in our levels of blood sugar. So we're eating in a way that controls it, where it's not too high and it's not too low. If you go through, let's say you just did let's say you skipped breakfast, you're right here. So it starts coming down. Okay. And then now you release cortisol to get it back up. And then we eat something that is like chips and a Coke. It goes above that line, it comes back down below. You can kind of see how I'm saying. I wanted to skip blood sugar in college, but that ended up being the one thing that this made me understand more than any other thing I ever saw was this. Yes?
While you're your breakfast schedule, is it good to eat the better to eat 3-4 balanced meals and snack in between, or eat smaller meals and snack in between?
Okay, you can do this however you want to schedule it. As long as you can eat every 2 hours if there's smaller meals. I just know that it's really hard, right, with our lifestyle to get in 5 meals a day. Because if you're busy showing houses or whatever else, your job just doesn't, it's not convenient. Like I'm lucky because I'm in the gym. I always, when I changed and went to this new gym, the first thing I do when I get there, do they have a microwave and do they have a refrigerator? And if they don't, I go and buy it. Because that's my number one priority. For me to be in this company, in this business, my food has got to be my number one priority. Okay, I got that set up. Now I can move on to the next thing. So is that what you were asking? Yeah, you can have smaller meals. You could have 8 meals a day. As long as it equals your food quota of 2,800 calories, it doesn't matter. It doesn't, I mean, you wouldn't want to do 2 meals a day to get to 2,800 calories. What's that? Yeah, at least 3, but optimal, yeah, preferably 5 or 6. You know, for me, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so I end up eating about 6 to 7 meals in a day. They're spread out, but it's still those 7 meals equal 2,800 calories. Okay, but in every meal is a protein, carb, and fat. Every meal. So yeah, however you want to set it up, but I would definitely get in a habit of when you first wake up. I don't know if you like coffee. I love coffee. Get the coffee going, and I make my breakfast. And if you're not doing breakfast now, start off with something small. It's a piece of toast with jelly. Just do something like that. And then the next week, maybe try to throw in a couple eggs. Okay. For men and women, 1 egg is good, whole egg. But then women would go 3 egg whites with that. Men would go 1 egg with 6 egg whites. People go, but God, what about the yolks? You know, look, you're doing yourself a favor. There's 6 grams of fat in 1 egg yolk. Okay, and that's that type of fat. There's a lot of B vitamins. There's some really good nutrients within that 1 yolk. But once you start going higher than that, you get a lot of cholesterol. So we want to minimize that. Okay, so this is some examples of carbohydrates. You know, I love now we have phones because I see a lot of y'all taking pictures. You don't have to save you a lot of writing. That's a good example of carbohydrates. We want complex carbohydrates. People who say the food pyramid is incorrect, I've heard people laugh and make fun of it. The food pyramid is correct. At the bottom, the biggest part of that pyramid is carbohydrates. It doesn't have donuts on that. If you look at the pictures, there's no donuts. There's no cookies. There's no candy bars. It's whole foods. And there's some examples of protein. And I'm sure there's probably other things we can add to that, but those are some of the most common.
So where do we get our energy from? Is it from the carbs that we eat?
Yes, carbohydrates are like gas for your car.
Oh, good.
Yeah, good. So, you know, a good example. Let's say our car had the ability, when our gas got low, it could shift into motor oil. Okay, so when we're running out of gas, when we run out of carbohydrates, our body is switching into our muscle. And muscle is not a really efficient way. You don't run well off of muscle mass. You start losing a lot of your ability to function at your optimum level. You're working on a sub-maximum. Your body doesn't like to work off of protein, just as our car doesn't want to work off of motor oil. And that, I mean, we can't, I don't know if that's a bad analogy, but if you can get that picture, it doesn't like to run off of the oil. It wants to run off of gas. Okay? And you can overeat anything. You can overeat carbs, protein, or fat. And then there's some examples. And again, in moderation. And also, I want you to know that I was talking to somebody earlier, there's no food off limit. I'm never going to tell you not to eat a hot dog. And people say, well, hot dogs have these carcinogens and it breaks down your system. Well, you would have to eat hot dogs every day for that to be a problem. I don't recommend eating hot dogs every day. But what I'm saying is the minute you tell yourself you can't have it is the minute you cannot get it out of your mind. It's the forbidden fruit. You can't have that. You want it even more. Now, I don't know. Do y'all know if I told y'all the marshmallow study they did? Were y'all okay? 1970, they took a group of kids that were young, 6 to 8 years old, and they set them in a room with a plate with a marshmallow on it. And they said that if this is the one test that they've ever done that can really gauge how successful you become. Okay. If they told that kid, if you'll sit here for 5 minutes and not eat that marshmallow, when we come back, we'll give you another one. Okay. And so some of these kids just couldn't contain and control themselves. 30 seconds, they grabbed that marshmallow and ate it. Some kids let it sit there. Okay. The kids that had the ability to control their impulse, they have higher education. There's less divorce rate because they followed this group up. Even today, they're still following this group. So the ability to delay immediate gratification is the best indicator of how successful your life will be. And so it's just controlling, delaying that gratification. I'm not going to go. Okay, let's talk about food. Do y'all have any questions about food? Yes.
I like nuts. What do you consider the fat nuts compared to the protein nuts?
Okay. What we've got to do is I would figure out what everyone needs. Like you need 20 grams of protein per meal. So I'd have to look at the ingredients on the back, and it would probably say that 3 nuts have 20 grams of protein. So you could have 3 nuts at that meal. Would you rather have 3 nuts or a 4-ounce chicken breast? So you can have nuts. Okay, those 3 nuts will probably be, I don't know, it depends on what nuts you're eating, but it could be upwards of 20 grams of fat for 3 of these little bitty nuts. I have found through my years, I've done this for 37 years, that my main thing is to be full. I like to have my stomach full. If I'm full, then I don't really care. I don't really have a lot of I guess I eat Mexican food on the weekend. My wife and I will go out Saturday night and we'll have whatever we want. So, but if it's nuts that you like, then,
I guess I was relating it to a snack. I was told.
Yeah.
Some nuts. Or what do you like for good snacks?
For good snacks, well, you could do a sandwich, 2 slices of whole wheat bread. You could do some ground turkey or ground chicken. Make turkey patties. I would say make 4 or 5 whenever you do that. Put them in the refrigerator in Tupperware bowls. Because if you have to make something every time you eat it, it's really hard to follow. Like we get lazy or we're in a hurry. Last night before I went to bed, it's great. I love rice steamers because you can plug it in and go to bed and it cuts off automatically. And so I have a big, it looks like a crock pot kind of thing that I put in the refrigerator with my rice in it. So when I get up in the morning, I do my 2 cups of rice. I take 6 ounces of chicken. I take 2 cups of vegetables and put that in there. And there's my lunch. And then I'll go ahead and put I like to do Quaker quick grits for my carbohydrates. I'll put half a cup in a bowl, put a lid on it, no water. I'll wait till I get into work and I add water to it. What I do is I put vanilla protein powder in the grits, and it tastes like I'm eating vanilla cake mix. It's delicious. But if I had time and I could enjoy my morning, which I said, getting up at 4, I like to get into work. I make that at work and eat my breakfast there. But if I was at home, I probably would scramble 1 whole egg with 6 whites and either have oatmeal or Quaker quick grits. There's a lot of cereals that are okay. I would look more. Your healthier cereals are either going to be really high or really low. Okay, but the low cereals are going to be really sugary because that's kids' high level. They're strategically placing things. When you go into a grocery store, all grocery stores are going to have their vegetables, produce on the right side. Okay, because that's the first place we'll go. We get our bananas and we'll get some salad and we'll get some grapes. And now we feel validated, justified to hit those internal aisles. And that's where we start picking up some of the more calorically sugar-enriched things. Yes?
Since the last time you spoke, we've been focusing on trying to eat oatmeal for breakfast. My wife eats blueberries and I eat it with butter and brown sugar
Yeah.
and half.
Okay.
And I drink my coffee with flavored creamer, not sugar-free, and sugar.
Okay.
So how can I better serve myself
Okay.
my oatmeal and my coffee?
Okay. So make your oatmeal, and rather than using butter, use Molly McButter. Molly McButter. It's called Molly McButter. Molly makes, I think, some seasonings also, but it's it's a lot less fat. He would.
Where is it found in the cooler section? With the butters?
It's going to be in the seasoning section. Yeah, in the seasoning section. You know, you could do Smart Start if you like, if you just got to have butter, but you know, I would say try this. A lot of people kind of, I don't know, they'll say it's processed and all that. Yeah, but it's healthier for you. Bottom line, it's going to be healthier for you. Sugar substitutes. I would much rather someone to use sugar substitutes than use sugar.
What about honey?
Okay, the brain doesn't know the difference between sugar and honey. A lot of people think honey's more healthy, but it's really not. You get a big blood sugar spike when you do pure honey or pure sugar. Yeah.
I switched to monk fruit last year.
To what
I
fruit?
switched to monk fruit.
What is that? I'm not familiar.
It's sugar.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
What she said?
The monk fruit, is an alternative for sugar, and it's really good.
and it tastes.
I still didn't hear it.
Monk.
Could you spell that? Because I don't.
Sugar
substitute. And it's incredible.
Okay, great. It's like PB2. I think we talked about that too. If you like peanut butter, it's amazing. It's just peanut butter powder. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? I don't want, but you take a teaspoon of that. Have y'all tried it? You take a teaspoon of it and it's like magic. You put it in your little bowl and add water to it and mix it up and it becomes peanut butter. And it's delicious. You get it anywhere, any grocery store. I don't know what aisle that's on. I think it was at the end of the bread aisle. I think at this neighborhood Walmart over here. But I mean, if you like peanut butter, and it's only like 2 grams of fat. Yeah, where a tablespoon of peanut butter, I think it's like 14. What's that?
Good protein.
Yeah, it's good protein. Yep.
I noticed on your protein list up there, you had sirloin and filet, but not ribeye,
The fat content. Yeah, I mean your red meats are going to be real fatty, and if you have high blood pressure, but it's okay. Hey, every once in a while have a.
so good.
Yeah, I mean it's not. Don't. I mean that would be your Saturday night. Get your big old ribeye. Yeah, I mean. Well, that's better. Yeah, if it's thin like that. Yeah. What was that? Well, okay, shrimp is high in cholesterol, but in moderation, you can eat it. Remember, there's no food off limits. Okay, you can have it. It's just. Yeah, that's the only. I mean, just the cholesterol. Uh-huh.
It doesn't really matter what percentage of fat the drink has. What I do is I rinse my meat with boiling hot